What happens when you mix a little bit of Batman 89 with Batman Begins and a little bit of Batman the Animated Series? You get 2022's The Batman. What's up, everyone? Matt back for another Who Are They Real Review, and today I'm here to talk to you about my most anticipated movie of the last 2 or 3 years now, and that is none other than The Batman, directed by Matt Reeves, starring Robert Pattinson, Zoe Kravitz, Colin Farrell, Paul Dano, and a host of others. I was an early adopter of the Batman train. I loved the Pattinson casting because I'd seen films such as Good Time. Reeves has shown me his fantastic work in War of the Planet of the Apes and Cloverfield. He's just got a nice catalog that shows you how diverse and dark he can tell a story. And I was on board with it from the jump. I wanted to see this movie almost immediately before even knowing what we were going to get. And of course, you had the Paul Dano casting, who I always thought was an underrated actor. Nearly was Jonah Hill. Glad it wasn't. We'll get into that in a minute. But this film, honestly, surpassed every bar and expectation I had already set in my head, and just completely shattered and blew past it and gave me what may be one of my all-time favorite films. Not just Batman films, all-time favorite films. First off, I want to say Robert Pattinson is everything you'd want from a Batman. And some people may not like to hear this, but this isn't a Bruce Wayne and Batman story. This is a Batman story. He is a bootstraps on the ground Batman for 80 to 90% of this film. If you want to judge him on his Bruce Wayne and his Batman, you're not going to get that here, because this is first and foremost a Batman film. Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman, Selena Kyle. She brings such this, it's this like beautiful subtlety to the character, while also being such a strong personality in the same time. And I absolutely loved it. There is so much that we were able to do in such a short amount of time, and it blew me away completely. I could not wait to see another piece of the world they're clearly building, whether it be on HBO Max, a sequel film, a spin-off film, because Matt Reeves gave me something that is a childhood Batman film, someone who grew up on the 90s animated films and the Keaton films and even the Schumacher films to a certain degree. This was exactly what I wanted from the Batman. But one of the real MVPs of this was Paul Dano as the Riddler, because for someone who's a B-level, maybe even C-level villain, he is able to bring you a performance as a Batman villain that we haven't seen since the likes of Heath Ledger in The Dark Knight. And that was just amazing. He made the Riddler scary. He made the Riddler someone who should be feared, and ultimately is just almost as insane as the Joker. That was awesome to me. I like the Zodiac type killer vibe they give the Riddler. It really worked. On top of it, that costume, just, even though it's so simple, is just amazing to look at. I could not ask for any more, but I was given more, because there's basically not a single performance in this film that is subpar or even par. They are all going above and beyond, and I think that's something Reeves is able to do as a director, and you see it here. His eye in this film is fantastic. He finds a beautiful way to give you the physicality of Batman, along with the ability to just make him very cerebral and dark. And what I really looked at when exploring this film is, when I go back to he's Batman 80 to 90% of this film, even in mindset, there's a point where he's like, screw Bruce Wayne, screw the Bruce Wayne responsibilities. I don't care about that. What I'm doing now is going to be my family's legacy. That tells you a lot considering we're only in year 2 of this Bruce Wayne / Batman's development. He hasn't fully formed into the suave, I need to use Bruce Wayne to keep being Batman. And that is something I found really interesting. Michael Giacchino's score is just top notch. It dropped on your respective music players. You can go listen to it now. I would suggest you wait to the film. Part of me wants to suggest that you listen to it now because of how beautiful it is. But it adds such another layer to this film that I can't stop listening to it. This film's also really dark, and it's something I felt that it needed. It's even darker than the Nolan films, as privy to as exampled by in the film The Thumb Drive Joke, which I won't go into any further. The thing I really loved most about this, though, was the fact that it felt like it could be a 3-hour adult version adaptation, live action adaptation of the 90s animated show, famous for Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill playing Batman and Joker respectively. I was just enthralled. It starts you off, and at points in that beginning, it feels like a horror film. And as this mystery unfolds, because this film is first and foremost a noir, it just does nothing but keep you enthralled, keep you going. There was almost never a dull moment. And that was really impressive to me. If I'm going to have one complaint, this is the only complaint I really have about this film, is that I wish we had more Alfred. Andy Serkis gives me a lot of what I like in Alfred, and I love this Alfred and Bruce aren't buddy like we've seen before. Like people love the Michael Caine Alfred and Bruce. People really enjoyed the Jeremy Irons and Ben Affleck Alfred and Bruce. My biggest complaint is while we have a few beautiful moments between the two, I didn't get enough Alfred. But that's just me nitpicking, because throughout this film, there's just so much going on, and with it being a younger Batman without a lot of the tech and tools that he has later on, it really works. And the cinematography was by Greg Fraser is spectacular. I couldn't look away. I didn't want to look away. I immediately got tickets to see it Friday night with friends afterwards, and it's a spectacular film. The last thing I want to talk about is how Gotham feels like a character of its own. A lot of people complaints about the Christopher Nolan films is that Gotham just feels like a normal New York City, Chicago, Pittsburgh, a lot of places that they actually filmed, and not gothic and that gothic buildings with the arches and everything, all that beauty you get. And it didn't feel like its own character like it did in the Burton films. That was something you could tell Matt Reeves made sure wouldn't be said about his film, because even where Bruce Wayne lives, his Wayne Manor, if you will, because it's not really a manor. It's I don't want to get into that. It's got those gothic arches and spikes, and it's just amazing to look at. And just some of the background. I know they filmed partly in London, partly Chicago, and other places. This was just, it felt similar to the Burton films. It felt like its own character, and I think you needed that for Gotham. I will say the action was spectacular. If people were expecting this to be as action-packed as some of the other ones, I would say you'll be satisfied. Some people may say it wasn't enough. There's too much. I thought it was a nice balance of story and action, and it's just everything I personally wanted from a Batman film. If you didn't watch Real Talk from a couple weeks ago with myself and Taylor, where we talked about this film and what we're looking forward to from it, and our hopes and everything, then I suggest going back and watching that, because if you go watch that, you'll hear me just talking about my excitement for this film, and I'm excited even more now that I've seen it. So with that, if I'm going to rate this film, It's a 5 out of 5, which I don't throw around lightly. This is a film that I've kept thinking about even after seeing it. And I love it. I didn't know how happy I'd be the theater when I'm leaving it, or when I was leaving it, and the fact that it stayed on my mind days later, because I was like, okay, let's give myself a few days of separation before I record this, because I didn't want to just go gushing and gushing about it right out and then start thinking of stuff I hated, like I did with Batman versus Superman with my friend and other films like Endgame. That hasn't happened here, and I think that's important. So with that, The Batman, it's a 5 out of 5 from me. What do you think? Be sure to like, subscribe, follow everything we're doing over here at Watt Real Entertainment. There's a lot of fun stuff going on. Spin from the Reel on Mondays, Saber Reels on Wednesdays. Really scared to be making its comeback soon after a bit of an extended hiatus due to circumstances outside of our control. But yeah, there's a lot going on here. There will be a Batman spoiler talk in a week or so with myself and Taylor Cleek, and we'll be breaking down the Batman and talking about everything about it that we loved and all that fun stuff. But until then, we'll see you next time. I'm Matt, and this was another Who Are They Real Review.